walking alone at night, under the glow, at the end of the lamppost, where stories flow.
From tech to tales, from history to heart, we're here to chat, no need to be smart.
Lights flicker, but the conversation's brighter. A podcast to keep you company tonight.
So stroll with us, let your mind unwind, at the end of the lamppost, the curious kind.
Welcome to the show where the lamppost guides,
and the night is filled with thoughts and tides. Welcome to your deep dive into the world of City Pop. It's going to be a fun one. We're exploring the history, the artistry, and the surprisingly controversial revival of a musical style. That's as captivating as a Tokyo nightscape.
What's fascinating about City Pop is how it manages to be both futuristic and nostalgic.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's a sonic time capsule that transports you to Japan's economic boom in the late 70s and 80s, a period of rapid growth and technological advancement.
So if I'm picturing Japan during this time, am I right in thinking it's all sleek skyscrapers, neon lights, and a sense of limitless possibility?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And City Pop perfectly captures that energy. It's the sound of cruising down a highway in a sleek car, the city lights blurring past as you listen to music that's sophisticated, catchy, and just a touch melancholic.
One of the sources mentions this period being marked by the Japanese asset price bubble. For those of us who aren't economists, what exactly does that mean?
It's basically a period of rapid inflation in asset prices, like real estate and stocks. In Japan, this bubble was fueled by economic growth and speculation. It created a feeling of affluence and optimism, but it also had a dark side. When the bubble burst in the early 90s, it led to a recession that impacted Japanese society for years to come.
And this bubble, this feeling of both exuberance and impending collapse, is reflected in City Pop.
You'll hear it in music. The lyrics often touch on themes of fleeting love, luxurious lifestyles, and a sense of longing for something just out of reach. It's like enjoying a lavish party while knowing it can't last forever. Take Maria Takeuchi's Plastic Love, for example. It's a classic City Pop song that captures this perfectly. The lyrics talk about a love that's artificial and disposable and ultimately unsatisfying. It reflects the consumerism and materialism of the bubble era, where everything felt temporary and replaceable.
Plastic Love has definitely become one of the anthems for City Pop's revival, especially internationally. What I find interesting is how City Pop blends these Western influences with a distinct Japanese sound. How did Japanese artists achieve that?
While influenced by Western genres like funk, soul, jazz, and disco, City Pop is far from a simple copy. Japanese artists incorporated traditional Japanese instrument scales and melodies into their arrangements. They also experimented with advanced studio technology. In fact, the Yamaha DX7 synthesizer, known for its bright, crystalline sounds, became a staple in City Pop production.
I've heard that Tatsuro Yamashita, often called the king of City Pop, was very particular about maintaining the Japanese essence of his music.
He was. One of the sources mentions how he re-recorded his song Morning Glory because he felt the original American production was too westernized. He wanted to ensure his music retained its Japanese identity, even while incorporating elements of Western genres.
That's fascinating. He was clearly a visionary who understood the importance of preserving cultural authenticity while experimenting with new sounds. I think that brings up an interesting point about artistic control, especially in today's digital age where music is so easily shared and sampled.
You're right. This desire to maintain a distinctive Japanese sound is a thread that runs through a lot of City Pop. Another artist who embodies this is Miki Matsubara. Her song, Mayonaka no Door, Stay With Me, is a perfect example of City Pop's ability to blend Western influences with Japanese sensibilities.
That song became a global hit a few years back. I remember hearing it everywhere. It's incredible how a song from the 80s suddenly found new life in the 21st century.
Stay with me. 真夜中のドアを叩き帰らないでと泣いたあの季節が今目の前 Stay with me.
The internet played a huge role in City Pop's resurgence. Platforms like YouTube allowed these forgotten gems to be rediscovered by a global audience. You've got algorithms suggesting related tracks, anime-backed playlists introducing the sound to a new generation, and dedicated YouTubers like Stevem creating in-depth videos exploring the genre. It's been a perfect storm for City Pop's revival.
Okay, let's talk about some more of these artists that you think people should know about. What are some of the albums that really define the City Pop sound?
Well, can't talk about City Pop without mentioning Tatsuro Yamashita's album For You. It's like a sonic embodiment of summer in the city. Warm vocals, intricate arrangements, and an overall feeling of joy and melancholy. Then there's Maria Takuchi's Variety. It showcases her incredible songwriting and a vocal range, and it features collaborations with some of Japan's most renowned musicians, including Ryuichi Sakamoto, a legend in electronic music.
Variety is a classic. I remember reading somewhere that Takuchi actually took a step back from music after that album to focus on family life. It's amazing to think that someone who created such iconic music would choose to prioritize personal life over fame.
It speaks to the depth of her artistry. She wasn't just chasing trends. She was creating music that was true to herself. Speaking of personal journeys, Takako Mamiya's album Love Trip is a fascinating example of how City Pop artists use their music to explore themes of travel and self-discovery. The album is structured around a journey, both physical and emotional, and it uses English and Japanese versions of the same song to create a sense of continuity and evolution.
It sounds like a musical travelogue, reflecting that desire for escape and exploration that was so prevalent in City Pop. It's amazing how these artists managed to weave such complex narratives into their music.
And Henri's Timely is another great example. It's an album that captures the energy and anxieties of urban life, with moments of pure joy followed by quieter, more introspective tracks. It's like a day in the life of someone navigating a bustling city.
Okay, so we've got artists who are pushing boundaries, experimenting with technology, and crafting these incredibly rich and detailed sonic experiences. But if City Pop was so popular in the 80s, why did it seem to disappear for a while?
Well, like we talked about earlier, the economic bubble eventually burst, and Japan entered a period of recession. City Pop, which had become associated with the extravagance and optimism of the bubble era, lost some of its mainstream appeal, newer genres emerged, and City Pop, like a lot of music tied to specific cultural moments, faded into the background.
It's almost like a reminder that even the most vibrant cultural phenomena can be fleeting. But as we know, City Pop didn't stay hidden forever.
That's where the internet comes in. It provided a platform for rediscovery, a way for people outside of Japan to stumble upon this music and fall in love with its unique sound and aesthetic.
It's almost as if this music was waiting to be rediscovered.
Exactly. It was like a time capsule waiting to be opened. And the internet provided the key.
Welcome back to our deep dive into City Pop. We've been talking about how this music captures the energy and anxieties of Japan's economic bubble in the 1980s. But it's not just the overall vibe, right? There are specific lyrical themes that really drive that point home.
Absolutely. City pop lyrics often explore themes of love, longing, and urban life against a backdrop of economic prosperity. But also a sense of transience. It's like living in a luxurious high-rise apartment with stunning views, but knowing that it's all built on shaky ground.
I've noticed that heartbreak seems to be a recurring theme, but not always in a straightforward, sad way. It's more nuanced than that.
That's a great observation. City pop doesn't shy away from the complexities of love and loss. It acknowledges the pain of heartbreak, but also suggests an acceptance that nothing lasts forever, especially in a rapidly changing world.
So it's more like, yes, this hurts, but life goes on, and there's beauty to be found in impermanence.
Exactly. There's often a sense of melancholy in city pop. But it's not necessarily depressing. It's more like a wistful longing for something that's already gone, or maybe never even existed.
It's fascinating how that feeling of impermanence ties back to the economic bubble.
Yeah.
Even amidst all the wealth and optimism, there's this underlying awareness that it could all disappear in an instant.
Precisely. The bubble created a culture of instant gratification and disposable income, which is reflected in some of City Pop's lyrics about fleeting romances, luxurious lifestyles, and a desire for escape.
The music itself seems to create this cinematic experience, even without lyrics. I can practically feel the city lights whizzing by as I listen to some of these tracks.
That's one of the hallmarks of City Pop. Its ability to transport you to another time and place. The lush arrangements, the smooth vocals, the intricate production. It all comes together to create a sonic world that's both immersive and evocative.
It's interesting that you mentioned production. One of the sources talks about how City Pop artists were early adopters of advanced recording techniques and instruments, like the Yamaha DX7 synthesizer. Can you tell us more about how that technology influenced the sound?
The DX7 was revolutionary for its time. It produced these incredibly crisp, bell-like tones that became a signature sound in many City Pop tracks. Its digital nature also allowed for more complex and layered arrangements, which City Pop artists fully embraced.
So they weren't just using the technology to replicate Western sounds, they were pushing the boundaries and creating something new.
Exactly. They were innovators. They took inspiration from Western music, but weren't afraid to experiment and blend it with their own cultural influences and artistic vision. And it wasn't just about the synthesizers. They were also masters of using traditional instruments like the koto and shakuhachi in ways that blended seamlessly with the Western instrumentation.
One of the sources mentions that the introduction of the Walkman in the 1980s actually played a role in shaping the City Pop sound. It seems like a bit of a stretch, but is there a connection?
It's not a stretch at all. The Walkman made music more portable and personal. It allowed listeners to create their own soundtracks for their lives, whether they were commuting to work, strolling through a park, or simply relaxing at home.
So City Pop, with its focus on creating these rich and immersive sonic landscapes, was the perfect music for this new way of listening.
Exactly. It was music designed for individual experience, for getting lost in the soundscape and letting it transport you to another place.
It's like the Walkman provided the perfect canvas for City Pop to paint its sonic pictures on.
That's a great way to put it. And it's fascinating how that connection between personal technology and musical experience continues today. Think about how playlists and streaming services shape the way we listen to and discover music.
It's almost like City Pop was ahead of its time in anticipating how technology would transform our relationship with music. And it's interesting how its resurgence coincides with a broader trend of nostalgia in popular culture. Why do you think we're so drawn to the aesthetics and sounds of past decades, especially now?
I think there are a few reasons for that. Nostalgia offers comfort and familiarity in a world that often feels uncertain and overwhelming. It can transport us back to a time that we perceive as simpler, more innocent, even if that perception is romanticized.
So it's not necessarily about wanting to go back to the past, but more about seeking a sense of escape or connection to something that feels authentic and meaningful.
I think that's a big part of it. And City Pop, with its warm, nostalgic sound and themes of longing and escape, taps into that longing perfectly. It's like a sonic portal to a time and place that maybe never truly existed, but feels comforting and familiar nonetheless.
Makes you wonder if there's a connection between the music we gravitate towards and the socioeconomic conditions of the time. Like, does a yearning for simpler times, as reflected in the resurgence of genres like City Pop, suggest something about our current anxieties about the future?
That's a really interesting question. It's certainly something worth pondering. Does our current fascination with the past reflect a subconscious desire for stability and certainty in a world that feels increasingly chaotic?
It's something for our listeners to consider. What are some other examples of this resurgence of interest in music from past decades? It seems like City Pop isn't the only genre experiencing a revival.
You're right. We're seeing a renewed interest in everything from disco and funk to synth pop and shoegaze. Vinyl records are making a comeback. And artists from past decades are finding new audiences thanks to streaming services. It's like we're collectively revisiting our musical past and finding new meaning in it.
And it's not just about rediscovering old favorites. There's also a whole new generation of artists who are drawing inspiration from these classic sounds and creating something fresh and exciting.
Absolutely. The influence of City Pop can be heard in contemporary genres like vaporwave and future funk, which sample and reinterpret elements of City Pop to create something entirely new.
It's like City Pop has become this sonic wellspring, inspiring a new generation of artists to explore its depths and create something unique and relevant for today's world.
That's a great way to put it. It's a testament to the enduring power of music to transcend time and inspire creativity across generations. It's a conversation that's both timely and essential as we navigate the evolving landscape of music consumption and creation in the 21st century.
In our final part, we'll dive into that conversation about City Pop's revival and the controversies it has sparked, especially around issues of cultural appropriation, copyright, and the ethics of sampling. We'll also explore its influence on contemporary music and what it tells us about our evolving relationship with sound and technology.
It's a complex topic, but it's an important one to consider as we continue to grapple with the ever-changing landscape of the music industry.
Midnight pretenders, 背中
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of City Pop. We've covered a lot of ground, from the music's historical roots in Japan's economic bubble to its global resurgence in the digital age. But this revival has also brought some complex issues to the surface.
Yeah, there's this fascinating tension between the accessibility of music in the digital age and the rights of the artists who created it. This is something that plays out in the City Pop revival quite prominently.
In earlier parts, we talked about how algorithms and playlists on platforms like YouTube help to bring City Pop to a global audience. But there's also a flip side to that, right? What about the artists who might not have consented to their music being shared so widely?
That's a crucial point. Many City Pop artists didn't see international success during the genre's peak in the 80s. So their music wasn't officially released on a global scale. Now, thanks to the internet, their music is reaching millions, but often without their control or even knowledge.
So you have these artists who might not be receiving any royalties or recognition for their work being shared and sampled in other countries.
That's right. And it raises some thorny questions about copyright, fair use, and the ethics of profiting from music that you didn't create.
One of the sources mentions Tatsuro Yamashita, who we talked about earlier, being particularly protective of his music. He's been known to issue copyright strikes against unauthorized uploads of his songs. It highlights the tension between wanting to share this music with the world and respecting the artist's control over their work.
It's a difficult balance to strike. And there's no easy answer. Some argue that strict copyright enforcement is essential to protect artists' livelihoods, while others believe it can stifle creativity and limit access to culture.
It's interesting how these dilemmas surrounding City Pop mirror larger debates about the music industry as a whole. Streaming services and the global reach of the internet have disrupted traditional models of music creation and distribution.
Absolutely. The rise of sampling in various genres, from hip-hop to vaporwave, brings these issues to the forefront. How do we give credit and compensate artists whose work is being sampled? Especially when those samples are sometimes the foundation of entirely new tracks.
It also raises questions about cultural appropriation. When artists from one culture sample or reinterpret music from another culture, it's important to do so with respect and understanding.
Right. It's not just about taking a catchy melody or a cool beat. It's about acknowledging the cultural context, the history, and the people behind the music.
So how can listeners be more mindful about how they engage with music from other cultures, especially in a digital landscape where it's so easy to stumble upon music from all over the world?
I think it starts with curiosity. Dig a little deeper. Learn about the artists, the history, and the cultural influences that shaped the music you're enjoying. Look for official releases. Support the artists directly, and engage in conversations about these issues.
It's like a reminder that music is more than just entertainment. It's a reflection of culture, history, and lived experiences. And it's important to approach it with that awareness.
Exactly. And while these issues around copyright and cultural appropriation present real challenges, they also spark important conversations about how we value and respect art in the digital age.
So it's not all doom and gloom. There are positive aspects to City Pop's resurgence as well, right?
Absolutely. One of the most heartening outcomes has been the official reissues of many classic City Pop albums, often remastered, and with the full support of the artists. This not only introduces the music to a new generation in a high-quality format, but also ensures that the original creators are recognized and compensated fairly.
That's great to hear. It shows that it's possible to celebrate and share this music while also addressing the ethical concerns.
Yes, and beyond the reissues. The renewed interest in City Pop has also led to collaborations between contemporary artists and those who pioneered the genre. This cross-generational exchange is not only creatively exciting, but also helps to ensure that the legacy of City Pop continues to evolve and inspire.
Oh my darling,
As we wrap up this deep dive into City Pop, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
For me, it's the reminder that music has this incredible power to transcend boundaries, time, culture, language. It can connect us to the past, make us think critically about the present, and inspire us to create the future. But with that power comes responsibility. We need to engage with music thoughtfully and ethically, ensuring that we appreciate its origins and support its creators.
That's a great note to end on. To our listeners, we hope this deep dive into City Pop has been informative, thought-provoking, and maybe even inspired you to add some new tunes to your playlist.
Happy listening.